In the beginning of civilization, same-sex relations were accepted and recognized publicly. Seen earliest in Mesopotamia, continuing through the Roman Empire, the acceptance lasted until the emergence of Christianity. The term gay initially meant joyful and happy, but then, in the 17th century, it became a synonym for wicked and sinful. The word gay didn't refer to the same-sex unity until the early 19th century. LGBT stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. Lesbian is the attraction between two females, gay is the attraction between two men, bisexual is the attraction to both sexes, and transgendered
It's written.
is a person who is one sex physically, but emotionally and mentally they are the other. Homophobia is the fear of prejudice or discrimination against LGBT people. The first fight for gay rights was the Society for Human Rights, founded by Henry Gerber in 1924. It was shut down fast due to political pressure. In 1948, biologist and sex researcher Alfred Kinsey published Sexual Behavior in the Human Male. He concluded that homosexual behavior was not restricted to people who identify themselves as homosexual, and that 37% of men have enjoyed homosexual activity at least once. Around the same time, homosexuality was being considered as a form of illness rather than a lifestyle. The Medicine Society aimed to eliminate discrimination, derision, prejudice, and bigotry, and to assimilate homosexuals into mainstream society, and was created in 1950. In 1953, after homosexuality was reported to be a sociopathic personality disturbance by the American Psychiatric Association, President Dwight Eisenhower signed an order banning homosexuals from working in the federal government or any of its private contractors. They were said to be a security risk, like alcoholics or neurotics. Finally, in 1956, Evelyn Hooker concluded after many tests that homosexuality is not a clinical entity and that heterosexuals and homosexuals do not differ significantly.
Around the same time, actually probably about 30 years later, the AIDS and HIV epidemic started. The AIDS and HIV viruses at first were considered to be directly related to gay. The disease was initially called GRID, gay-related immune deficiency disorders. When symptoms were found outside the gay community, Bruce Voller, biologist and founder of the National Gay Task Force, successfully lobbied to change the name of the disease to AIDS. ACT UP, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, was formed in 1987 in response to the effects the disease had on gay and lesbian communities in New York. There are approximately 1.1 million people living with HIV and AIDS in the US today. Also during this time, same-sex couples wanted to join together in marriage, but there were laws prohibiting them too. In 1996, President Clinton signed the Defense of Marriage Act into law. The law defined marriage as a legal union between one man and one woman, and that no state is required to recognize a same-sex marriage from out of state. In 2000, Vermont was the first state to legalize civil unions and registered partnerships between same-sex couples. Then, in 2004, Massachusetts became the first state to legalize gay marriage. Before the U.S. Supreme Court ruling on 2014 declining to hear cases on same-sex marriage, 31 states had either constitutional or statutory provisions that explicitly defined marriage as once again between a man and a woman, and just 19 states and the District of Columbia allowed same-sex marriage. Today, 36 states and Washington, D.C. recognize same-sex marriage. State legislators, voters, and more recently, the courts have made sweeping changes over the past 2 decades in laws defining whether marriage is limited to relationships between a man and a woman or is extended to same-sex couples. The members of the LGBT community have had a hard fight and have quite a ways to go, but hopefully someday the world can be an equal place for both members of this society.